Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome everyone to the P7 crash courses for June 2018 examination. And today we are having the third day of the crash courses. The agenda for the day 3 is ethical and professional issues. How we can be good at ethical and professional issues in P7 is exactly what we will be learning over the next 3 hours. Now, I was conducting a poll uh, as to how much fear students have in tackling ethical and professional issues. And the results which I got is exactly what I have in mind. 55% of the students believe they have a very high or high fear in tackling this topic, whereas I think almost like 5% of the student was like saying they had no fear of this topic, but most of the student responded with very high fear or a moderate fear. That was a significant percentage of the total uh, poll results. Now that means this topic, ethical and professional issues, needs a very serious consideration over the next 3 hours to ensure that you have a very clear mindset of attempting a question on this topic in a June 2018 examination. Now let's start to understand some basic fundamentals about the type of question, what examiner expects from you, and how you can be effectively prepared for your exams on the 4th of June. So let's start the discussion the same way we are having since the last two classes. Let's go to the Word file and start using the Word file, and let me demonstrate to you first what exactly you should have in mind before you see an actual exam paper on ethical and professional issues. Now, first of all, when we look at this topic, ethical and professional issues in P7, if we first look at the ethical issues, professional issues, and the quality control issues. Now, if we first start with ethical issues, first of all, when we look at the question 1 of the exams, the question 1, which is the compulsory question, it includes ethical issues and actions on average for 7 to 8 marks in some of the past exam sittings. Now, you might be facing a question on ethics right into the first question for 7 to 8 marks. Now, that is a question just on ethics. It does not involve professional and quality control issue. So for 7 to 8 marks, examiners simply ask you to identify and explain the ethical issues and recommend actions. So that's a pretty straightforward question for 7 to 8 marks, but the student should be sound on ethics. And what I believe is students are good on ethics alone, but student tends to increase their fear level when the question comes combined on ethical and professional issues. So in the first question, for average 7 to 8 marks, the examiner asks you ethical issues and the safeguards. Now all of you know the ethical issues are primarily the threats to objectivity. So from a case study, You need to identify the threats to objectivity. And all of you know the threats to objectivity, right? The five threats: the self review, the self interest, the familiarity, the advocacy, the intimidation. Ethical issues are not just the threats to objectivity, but the ethical issues can be something around conflict of interest. Now, being students, you should be good on conflict of interest. It has been examined many times in past paper. We know that conflict of interest is a situation where one audit firm is conducting an audit of two competitors. So as per the code of conduct, there is nothing improper in a firm having two competitors, provided we have safeguards in place. So a conflict of interest arises when an audit firm have two competitors with them. So code of conduct says there is nothing improper in a firm having two competitors, provided you have safeguards in place. And one of the better safeguard is that we should have different teams. Now, ethical issues are threats to objectivity, the five threats, the conflict of interest. The ethical issue also includes confidentiality, to whistle blow in public interest. We have seen examiner in some instances in past paper making question on confidentiality and to whistleblow when the matter is in the public interest. I hope if you remember a question in the past paper which was about a hospital, and in that hospital there were some surgeons who were performing the eye surgery, and the surgeons were not competent to perform the eye surgery. Now that question was on the hospital where the surgeons were incompetent. So that question was on hospital being the public interest, and that question was on the confidentiality, that if the auditor knows the fact that the surgeons are incompetent in the hospital, how will the auditor proceed with actions? How will the auditor proceed with safeguard? Will the auditor tell someone or not? So confidentiality is also an examinable area in P7, and the student should know the auditor responsibility in terms of confidentiality, particularly when the matter is in the public interest. Now, when a question comes alone on ethical issues, each ethical issue is equal to 1 mark, and each action that is the safeguard is equal to 1 mark, right? This is the marking scheme for ethics when it comes in the first question. So for every ethical issue you will identify from the case and you will explain that, you will get 1 mark for it. And for each action, you will get 1 mark. Now, the problem is how you can be good on alone ethics. If you visit the ACCA website for P7, which is right in front of you now, there is an article which is the very first article on the technical articles. The article has a title, Exam Technique for Advanced Audit and Assurance, Part 1, Ethics. This article demonstrates what you should do in attempting a question on ethics. This is a very good article which illustrates how good you can be on ethics in P7. So you should read this article. You should read this article for preparing yourself for ethical issue. So let me paste the link. So I've pasted the link here. So once you get this Word file at the end of the session, you can access this article, right? So I have pasted the hyperlink of the file here. Okay, now that is completing the first column, which is ethics for P7. Now, when it comes to professional and quality control issues, that is an area where student tends to underperform in P7. And we know we get a combined question. We get a combined question which have all three of them together, or at times all both of them together. Now, if a question comes combined, When you get a combined question in P7 and a combined question which says evaluate the ethical and professional issues slash recommendations, or the question asks you evaluate the ethical, comma, professional and quality control issues slash recommend actions. Now these are two types of questions, right? Which comes into as like combined questions. So the examiner asking you evaluate the ethical, professional issues and recommendations. Evaluate the ethical, professional and the quality control issues and recommendations. So ethics comes alone in first question, right? And in a combined question, which can be in section A or can be in section B, can be in question 2 or can be in question 3 or 4. Now, if you see a combined question, in a combined question, you need to identify ethical issues, but also professional issues, or also the quality control issues. Now, how would you identify the professional issues? What basically are professional issues? And in the second case, what basically are professional and quality control issues? So we need to be crystal clear on what are professional issues and how to identify them, and what are quality control issues and how to identify them. Now, just before starting an exercise on that, when a question comes combined, when a question comes combined, when a question comes combined, the marking scheme will change. The marking scheme will become 1.5 marks for each issue, whether that is an ethical issue. See, ethical issue have increased the marks in the first question. When the examiner says ethical issue, the marks for ethical issue was 1, right? But when ethical issue comes with professional issues, or ethical issue comes with quality control and professional issues, now 1.5 mark for each issue. Whether the issue is ethical, you will get 1.5 mark. Whether the issue is professional, you will get 1.5 mark. Or whether the issue is quality control, you will get 1.5 marks. So 1.5 marks, right, for each of the issues. And you will get 1 mark for writing in the action, or 1 mark for writing in the safeguard. So that is the marking scheme of a combined question, right? And the first marking scheme I have given you is just for ethics when it comes in the question number 1. So alone ethics, right? Alone ethics is 1 mark, but when ethics comes combined, it is 1.5 marks. Now, that is the type of the question and the marking scheme. Now let's understand what are professional issues and what are quality control issues. Now, first of all, if you want to be good on quality control issues, there is a support from ACCA, and the support is the article which you should read to be good on the examiner mindset. What is the examiner mindset for quality control issue? That is exactly what can come in exam paper. You cannot read the BPP mindset or the Kaplan mindset, because that is not the examiner mindset. The examiner mindset is the examiner article. So if you want to know the boundaries of examiner, then the better way is the examiner article. So if you want to be good on quality control issues, and I take you back to the ACCA website where we have articles given for P7, and I scroll down, you will see an article written by the examiner, which is this: audit quality, a perpetual current issue. And in this article, the examiner explores what audit quality is and what a student should know for audit quality appearing in a P7 exam. So let's copy the link and paste it into the Word file so that you can read this article after the session ends today. So this article is very important, right? And you should be reading this article. Okay, there is no article, right, for professional issues. But one thing which you can do for professional issues is, if I take you back to the website, there is an article which is down under, which is right here. Acceptance decision for audit, acceptance decision for audit and assurance engagement, acceptance decision for audit and assurance engagement. This article is a very important article if you want to prepare yourself for professional issues. What are professional issues? Right, so I have now recommended in total 3 articles to you. The first article was for the ethical issues, which I prefer you would be reading. The second article I recommended is for professional issues, and the third article is for the quality control issue. If you read all these 3 articles within the next one day, you will have a very clear picture from an exam point of view that what examiner expects from you when you're sitting on the 4th of June in the exam hall. Right? Now let's start our discussion on professional issues. Now, if you want to understand what basically professional issues are in as broader sense as possible, professional issues, let's see what they are. First of all, the professional issues are the issues which is in the cycle of the audit. And the cycle of the audit starts from the stage of acceptance. The professional issues is within the cycle of the audit, right? So where will you find them? You will find the professional issues within the cycle of the audit. Now you might ask, what is the cycle of audit? When you look at the cycle of audit, the cycle of the audit starts with what? The cycle of the audit starts with acceptance. Then the second step of the cycle is planning. Then the third step of the cycle is gathering evidence. Then the fourth step of the cycle is the review stage, where the working papers are reviewed. And the last stage is to issue an audit report, reporting. These are 5 steps of audit, right? We start audit with acceptance, then we do planning, then we gather evidence, then we have a review of the working papers, and then we issue the audit report. Now, this is the cycle of audit. So professional issues are within the cycle of audit. So when you are reading a case, the case can be at any stage of the audit. The examiner can make a stage at the examiner can make a case at the stage of gathering evidence. The examiner can make a case at the stage of acceptance. There are so many past papers which are on acceptance. There are so many past papers which are during the audit when the auditor is gathering evidence. There are so many past papers which is at the completion stage of the audit when the review is being conducted. So you will find the exam questions either at acceptance stage, you will find past papers either at the stage of during the audit, or you will find many papers in P7 which are at the completion stage. Completion stage means at the stage of review, where the work is being reviewed. So that means the professional issues are within the cycle of the audit. At times the examiner says the audit is nearing completion. The audit is nearly complete. You read the first paragraph and the examiner says the audit is nearing completion. The audit is nearly complete. the audit report will be issued in a week time. Now that tells you that the audit is at the completion stage. At times you start reading a question and the examiner says, you have been approached by a client. You have been approached by a client means you are at the stage of acceptance because the client has approached you for inviting you for the audit. So when you read the introductory paragraphs, you get to know where are you standing. Are you standing at the stage of acceptance, or you are standing during the audit, or you are standing at the completion of the audit? A lot of time the examiner says the audit is underway. So when the audit is underway, that means the audit is going on. So that means you are during the audit. So examiner do gives you sentences like such which help you identify where you are within the process of the audit. So professional issues are within the cycle of audit. Now within the cycle of audit, what are professional issues? Let's go one by one. If I start with the first stage, acceptance, what can be professional issues at the time of acceptance? Now, at the time of acceptance, the professional issues could be when I'm accepting a client. When I'm accepting a client, I would look at if it is a new client, if it is a new client I'm accepting. So I would be concerned about the client integrity as a professional issue. I would be concerned about uh, the previous auditor. If I'm accepting a new client, I will be concerned about why the previous auditor resigned. I would be concerned about the client integrity when I'm accepting the new client. I would be concerned about the deadlines in which I have to complete the new client, whether the deadlines are realistic or unrealistic. I would be concerned about my competence, whether I am competent to take on the new client, competence in terms of the industry specialization. If the client is coming from a telecom industry, do I have the specialization in telecom industry? Do I have competence? Can I accept the client? Are the deadlines realistic? Will I be able to complete the work within the stipulated time? And when I'm accepting my new client, I'm also concerned about my fees, how much to charge. And how much fees to charge depends upon the size of business. Am I accepting an owner managed company? If I'm accepting an owner managed company, my fees would be comparatively very less. But if I'm accepting a group audit which has 6 subsidiaries, I'll say a group audit with 6 subsidiaries, that's a very large entity. So I will have much fees here. Now, the article I recommended you, which was about acceptance decision. When you read the article acceptance decision, you will get a very good insight that when you accept a new client, in accepting a new client, there are so many professional issues which you need to consider. Now, secondly, you are not just accepting a new client, you might be accepting a service. You might be accepting a service from an existing client. Now, when you're accepting a service from an existing client, this might give rise to many ethical problems. But accepting a service from existing client would also give rise to many professional problems. When we are accepting a service from an existing client, we would be concerned about our competence. Do I have competence for the service? Competence versus the nature of service. Can my firm offer forensic services? Am I capable of offering forensic services? Whenever a service comes from a client, your existing client, of, of whom you are the auditor, it gives rise to ethical problems, right? But it also do give rise to professional problems. Professional problems like competence versus the nature of service. Again, the fees. How much fees to charge? How much to charge for the service? Then I would be concerned about the deadlines. What are deadlines for the service? And are the deadlines realistic or unrealistic? Bracket close. So that means at the stage of acceptance, whether I am accepting a new client, whether I am accepting a new client or I am accepting a service from an existing client, I should know the professional issues. And they're so very clearly covered in my presentation, which I have given to you on WhatsApp group, and even within the examiner article, which I have recommended to read here. So now it's up to you how you utilize these resources, right? So either you're accepting a new client or you're accepting a service from an existing client, right? Of which you are the auditor. Okay, second, now after acceptance, you do planning. At the planning stage, there might be so many professional issues. What if, what if the audit starts without planning? What if the audit starts without planning? Or what if the planning was not properly performed? Or what if the planning was done in haste or the planning was done in rush? We know planning is such an important stage of audit, and there is an ISA 300. So even if I'm doing, if even if I'm not doing planning, even if I'm not doing planning, first of all, I am breaching my ISA 300. And you cannot breach your ISAs. You cannot breach your ISAs. That is your fundamental behavior. That is your professional behavior. So at the planning stage, when you're reading a case, the case will guide you whether the audit was planned or not. But if you think the audit was not planned, or if you think the audit was not properly planned, or the audit was planned in a rush, now that means if audit is planned in a rush, I will not be able to identify the risky areas. I will not be able to identify the areas where I should focus on. So there are so many professional issues at the stage of planning. What if the audit starts without planning? What if the planning was not properly performed? Planning was done in haste and rush? Because I hope all of you understand the importance of planning. If we are planning in a rush, we are not identifying the core areas. We are not identifying the risky areas. That means we can increase our detection risk. A weak planning increases the detection risk for the auditor. So the planning has to be sound, right? The planning has to be sound and effective. Okay, then number 6, during the audit, when you're gathering the evidence. Now, that was exactly what we were doing yesterday in the class. The type 2 evidence. Comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence. When you are gathering evidence, there are so many professional issues. Who is gathering evidence? A junior or a senior? Now, if you think a junior is gathering evidence, then you have to be very critical. Junior gathering evidence or senior? Junior gathering evidence in risky areas. How can a junior gather evidence in risky area? If you found a question where it was written that the junior performed work on going concern, you will say, how can a junior perform work on going concern? Because going concern is a very subjective area, and a subjective area should not be allocated to a junior. That means the work was wrongly allocated to the junior. The junior should not have been given the going concern area. So who is gathering evidence, whether a junior or a senior? Examiner will deliberately bring a junior because he wants you to identify an issue. Junior gathering evidence in a risky area is another question mark. Then, when you're gathering evidence, was was sufficient appropriate audit evidence gathered? We did that exercise yesterday. In a case when you're identifying a professional issue, you have to be vigilant whether the evidence gathered by the audit team was sufficient or not. If it was not sufficient and appropriate, then that means that is a professional issue. So who is gathering evidence? Junior or a senior? Junior gathering evidence in a risky area. Was sufficient appropriate audit evidence gathered or not? That itself is a big question mark. So anything which relates with evidence, right? And if you think you can find a flaw relating to evidence and how evidence was gathered, then you are identifying a professional issue at the stage of gathering evidence. Right, then the next stage, there has to be a proper review of the work. Now, review of a work is very important stage. Now, at the stage of review, suppose it is written in a question, the manager is away on holidays. The manager is busy. The senior is not always available. The manager asks the manager asks the junior to review each other work. See, review of the work is very important, but see the issues in front of your screen. Manager is away on holidays, and who will conduct the review? Manager is busy, who will conduct the review? Manager asks the junior to review each of the work. How can that be possible? How can a junior review each of the work? How will the junior be? How will the junior identify the problem in his own work? It is the manager duty, right? It is the manager duty to perform the review. So there are issues at the review of the work in P7. More importantly, you need to understand the importance of review. You need to understand the importance of review. Review is important, right? Because review helps in identifying problems within the working papers. But if the manager is busy, who will identify the problems in the working paper? And those problems can increase the detection risk for the auditor. So review is a very important stage. And obviously, reporting has nothing to do with the exercise on professional, because reporting comes as a separate question 5 in P7. So there are 4 stages which you can face in a question on ethical and professional issues. Because the last stage, which is reporting, is what comes in a question 5. And question 5 has no association with ethical and professional issues. So question 5 is another static question, which we will be doing in the class tomorrow. So that is the professional issues, the cycle of audit. So if you think there is anything which is associated with the cycle of audit, acceptance, planning, evidence, review, anything which is associated with the cycle of audit is known as professional issue. Now, if I continue beyond the cycle of audit, there are 3 very important things which comes under professional issues. Number 1, there has to be a proper direction of audit. Proper direction of audit means a proper planning of audit. You cannot start audit without proper planning. You cannot start audit without proper direction. Second, another very important thing in the cycle of the audit is proper supervision. Proper supervision. Now we know supervision is ongoing, and supervision should be done by the manager on an ongoing basis. By the manager, or supervision should be done by the senior in charge. There should be someone responsible for supervision, because during the course of the audit, you might face problems. So the purpose of the supervision is to resolve the problem. Suppose if I am a junior, I will be needing supervision, right? I will be needing the guidance. I cannot work without guidance because I am a junior. So supervision is much needed in the course of the audit, because within the team, there might be many juniors within the team who need proper guidance, who needs proper supervision. So when we look at the cycle of audit, the very important thing in the cycle of audit is a direction. The very important thing in the cycle of audit is supervision. The very important thing in the cycle of audit is proper direction, proper supervision, gathering gathering adequate evidence, Gathering adequate evidence is a very important step in audit. Then something very important in the audit is proper proper review, proper review of work. So I cut short the points I made above into 4 points: direction, supervision, evidence, and review. Direction, supervision, evidence, and review. Right? So if there is a lack of direction, if there is a lack of direction, that is a professional issue. If there is a lack of supervision, that is a professional issue. If there is a lack of adequate evidence, that is a professional issue. If there is a lack of review, that is a professional issue. But you have to find them from a case. You cannot just rote learn them. Okay, another very important thing, that when we look at the professional issues, the professional issues includes number one, professional competence, and number two, professional behavior. Now, when we look at the professional competence, that is such an important thing, right? Competence, competence versus competence versus accepting a new client. So when I'm accepting a new client, I should look at my competence. Which competence? My industry specialization. So do I know the industry? Am I competent? Second, competence versus nature of service. Which service am I offering? Do I have competence versus the nature of service? Nature of service bracket competence for the service, for the nature of service. So do I have competence for the nature of service? Competence versus position. Competence versus position. That is the junior or the manager. Now, obviously, if something is being done by the manager, he is competent. If something is being done by the junior, he's not competent. So see how many competence can be there in P7. It could be competence versus the industry specialization. Competence versus the industry specialization. It could be competence versus the nature of service. It could be competence versus the position. So competence is a very important professional issue. Then the next is the professional behavior. Professional behavior is a very important professional issue. Now, what is professional behavior? Professional behavior means complying with applicable laws. Complying with applicable laws. So if I does not perform planning, if I does not perform planning and I start audit, so I am not complying with the applicable laws, because ISA 300 says you should perform planning before the start of the audit. So I know that I have to adhere with ISA's international standards on auditing. So if you're reading a case, if you're reading a case where you think the auditor is not complying with an applicable standard, so that is a lacking of a professional behavior. That means auditor's professional behavior is lacking. So complying with applicable laws. What if what if in a case what if in a case the audit team is not complying with the law, is not complying with applicable laws? Which applicable laws? The ISAs plus the firm policies. It's not just the applicable laws, it's also the policies of the firm. Every audit firm have their own policies. If I am breaching the firm policy, if I'm breaching the firm policy, I am still not demonstrating a professional behavior. So professional behavior means your compliance. So there can be a lack of professional behavior in the case. So you have to be critical of the professional behavior. Even more importantly, it's not just the compliance with law, it's also your professional skepticism, which is part of professional issues. Auditors should be professionally skeptical. Auditors should be skeptical. What what if auditor is not skeptical? What if auditor is not skeptical? What if auditor is not alert? What if auditor is not demonstrating a questioning mind? Now, all that depends upon a case study. So, professional issues are within the cycle of the audit: acceptance, planning, evidence, review. Professional issues means proper direction, proper supervision, adequate evidence, and a proper review. Professional issues also means professional competence, professional behavior, professional skepticism. I hope you're getting some sound definition of what is a professional issues and how significant they are to your P7 paper. Is everyone clear so far with the discussion I had with you in the last 20 minutes on professional issues? Has this exercise made your mindset clear upon what exactly you need to think about when the examiner says professional issues? And this discussion is not coming to an end, right? This is still ongoing. I think till 5 we will be wrapping up the discussion, because this discussion will make the base very strong for us to start with exam papers. Is that clear to everyone? Professional issues. Should we start on with the quality control issues? Okay, now when we look at the quality control issues, in terms of the quality control issues, okay, now when we look at the quality control issues, it's basically what you need to think in exam paper. What what compromise what compromise the quality of the audit cycle? Now, when you're attempting a question on quality control, you need to think what can compromise the quality of the audit cycle. Now, the audit cycle starts from acceptance, right, and ends at reporting. So we're not addressing reporting because it comes as a separate question, but it starts from acceptance, the cycle of audit. What compromise the quality of the audit cycle? Number one, what compromise the quality of the audit cycle? Lack of planning, lack of lack of supervision, lack of competence, lack of professional behavior, lack of direction, lack of review, um, not being independent, like having ethical issues. If I'm not independent, I will compromise my quality. Lack of planning, lack of supervision, lack of competence, lack of professional behavior, lack of professional skepticism, lack of professional skepticism, and the list goes on. Lack of competence, like lack of professional behavior, lack lack of lack of evidence will compromise your quality. So that means, as simple as that, if there is a professional issue, it will compromise the quality of audit, because quality is the end result, quality is the output. If I am not independent, it will compromise my quality, right? If I'm not independent, it will compromise my quality, right? Okay, please try to answer my question, because I just want to have your focus very clear. If I am not independent, will that compromise the quality of the audit? So does that means, if if there is an ethical issue, will the ethical issue leads to the compromisation of a quality? If there is an ethical issue, will it leads to the compromisation of a quality? So is ethics linked with quality? Is ethics linked with quality? If ethics is impaired, the quality will be impaired. Is that true? So both of them have a correlation. I hope you're understanding the correlation. So if ethics is impaired, the quality will be impaired. I hope you're understanding the correlation between the two. Okay. Now pick my second question. My second question is, if there is a lacking of a professional issue, if we are lacking on the professional side, will it compromise the quality? If I am lacking on a professional side, will it compromise the quality? If I am lacking on my planning, will it compromise the quality? If I am lacking on my evidence, will it compromise the quality of the audit? If I am lacking on the review, will it compromise the quality of the audit? If I am lacking on my professional skepticism, will it compromise the quality of the audit? So what is quality control issue? Is basically the output of the two things, ethical issues and professional issues. So if there is an ethical issue, it will lead to the compromisation of quality. And if there is a professional issue, it would lead to a compromisation of quality. See my list in the last column. See my list in the last column. Lack of planning, lack of supervision, lack of competence, lack of professional behavior, lack of review, not being independent, lack of professional skepticism, lack of evidence. So what I did in the last column, I just sum up the column 1 and column 2. So what compromised the quality of the audit cycle? What compromised the quality of the audit cycle? The column 1, plus the column 2. I hope you're understanding what is column 1, what is column 2. The column 1 is ethical issues, the column 2 is professional issues. So as simple as that, what compromise the quality of audit? So that means quality quality is the output. Quality is the output of what we input. Quality is the output of what we input in the audit. Quality is the output of what we input in the audit. Now you may ask me, what we input in audit? What we input in audit? What we input in audit? Ethics. Now, if we put good ethics in audit, it will boost quality. If I am independent, the quality will boost. If I am not independent, the quality will compromise. So what we input in audit? we input in audit is ethics. And what else we input in audit are professional factors. What professional factors we input in audit? Planning, evidence, review, supervision, etc. So do you understand the inputs? So basically quality depends upon the inputs, right? So if the input is right, the quality will be so good. And if the input is wrong, the quality will be badly affected. I hope you can understand the correlation of the input with the output. So should we be worried about quality control issues in P7? No, because when we are reading a question on quality control issue, technically what will be in the case? The case will have the inputs. Either the case will have the ethical problems or the case will have the professional problems. And the examiner will say, evaluate the ethical, professional, and quality control problems. So if I am evaluating the ethical and professional problems, I should be very clear on my answer that if there is an ethical problem and if there is a professional problem within a case study, ultimately it will compromise the quality of the audit. I hope all of you are understanding the term I used in the crash course, input and output. So quality is the output of what we input in the audit is a very important statement. I hope all of you are clear on that. Quality is the output of what we input in the audit. Is everyone clear on that statement? Quality is the output of what we input in the audit. Is everyone crystal clear on that? And what is the input of the audit? What is the input of the audit? The two things: ethics, professional. Ethics, professional. So if ethics compromise, the quality compromise. If professional compromise, the quality compromise. So what are two pillars of audit? One pillar of audit is ethics. One pillar of audit is professional. And if one pillar is weak, the quality will be compromised. Okay, now one last thing from quality. Now, when you read the examiner article on quality, the examiner article, which is basically the title of the article is Quality Control, a Perpetual Current Issue. Quality Control, a Perpetual Current Issue. This is the article of the examiner, right? Article of P7 examining team. Right, so quality control, a perpetual current issue, which is an article which you will be reading after the end of the session today. But in that article, the examiner has highlighted some of the main issues which compromise the quality. Some main issues which compromise the quality. And that is what you should be knowing because that is highly examinable in the past papers. Some issues which compromise the quality of audit. Now, what some issues? Now, the moment I tell you the issues from the examiner article now, you will see the list of the examiner. The list of the examiner is the inputs. The list of the examiner is the ethical and professional issues which compromise the quality. So examiner tells in the article what compromise the quality and then he puts that in the case studies. So what compromise the quality? The P7 examiner says that will emphasize my point that quality is the output of of what is input in the audit, right? So some issues which compromise the quality of the audit. Number one, examiner says ethical dilemmas. If there are ethical dilemmas, it will compromise the quality. The examiner says if there is a self-review threat, if there is a self-interest threat, if there is an advocacy threat, if there is a familiarity threat, you are identifying them as an ethical issue in the case. But you have to be realistic that the ethical issue itself can lead to the compromisation of the quality. So the very first example the examiner gives in the article, what compromised the quality, is an ethical dilemma. So was that an input I just mentioned to you? So ethical dilemmas are the inputs which compromise the audit quality. Second, what compromise the audit quality? Tight deadlines. Examiner says if the deadlines are tight, I put the deadlines in my acceptance, the cycle of audit, right? That when we're accepting a client or a service, we look at the deadlines. Examiner says if the deadlines are tight, which is basically a professional issue, but the tight deadline means we will do things in rush. So when the deadlines are tight, we have to be in rush. And when we are in rush, we'll compromise the quality. But tight deadline is a professional issue, right? But what is the end effect of a tight deadline? It compromises the quality. Bilal, ethical dilemmas are the threats to objectivity, right? Self-review, self-interest, familiarity, advocacy. As simple as that, the ethical issues. Is that clear? So tight deadlines, right? So examiner says the tight deadlines. We pick the deadlines in professional issue, right? We pick the deadline in a professional issue. We pick the ethics in the ethical issues. Then the examiner says fees restriction. Fees restriction. We pick fees in the professional issue in my column 2. Examiner is saying if there is a fees restriction, it will compromise the quality. That means the management is not willing to increase your fees. If the management is not increasing your fees, it will lead to the compromisation of quality. If you think that the size of the company has increased from the last year, the size of the company has increased from the last year, so your fees should increase. But the management says no, your fees cannot be increased. If there is a restriction on the fees, obviously the auditor will compromise the quality. Then competence. The examiner says if there is a problem with competence, competence will compromise the quality control. Now I spoke of competence, right? In my column 2 was a professional issue. Examiner says where there is a use of judgments, use of judgments. Judgments of whom? Judgment of the audit team. Wherever the audit team uses the judgment, wherever the audit team uses the judgment, and particularly that is the judgment of a junior, that is the judgment of a junior. The junior is taking a judgment. Now, wherever the junior is taking a judgment, it will compromise the quality. So we were so focal on the junior in the column 2. So examiner says ethical dilemmas can compromise the quality. Tight deadlines can compromise the quality. The fees restriction can compromise the quality. The competence can compromise the quality. And use of judgments. So these are 5 points from the examiner article, which you will be reading. But I hope I have made my point clear that the examiner is concluding on the same thing. Examiner is saying what compromise the quality? As simple as that, the examiner is saying what compromise the quality? The ethical issues. What compromise the quality? The professional issue. See the examples the examiner has given you from 1 to 5. 4 of them are professional, 1 of them are ethical. So I hope my sentence is clear that audit quality is the output of what is input in the audit, of what we input in the audit. Is everyone clear now on the ethical, professional, and quality control issues? Okay, now let's do first one skeleton exercise, and that will really help the exercise followed by that, which is the exam paper. Okay, now let's start an exercise. I'll take some examples from the past paper to justify how you should write the point. And then I take you to a proper exam paper. So just 15 more minutes and we start off with the past paper. Number one, some illustrative examples from past paper. So again, what you're learning here is the past papers, right? Number one, suppose you are reading a question, and if I can remember this question was December 13, and this was question number 4C. If you want to read it after the end of the session, you can. But I'm taking a line from this question. The line from this question is, this question was on ethical and professional issues. There was a line in the question which says, the audit committee has requested you to perform an actuarial valuation service, full stop. One of the partner of one of the partner of the firm is a qualified actuary, so have necessary skills to perform the service, full stop, and the inverted commas close. Now, this was a question on ethical and professional issue. I just took a line from that question, which says, the audit committee has requested you to perform an actuarial valuation service. One of the partner of the firm is a qualified actuary, so have necessary skills to perform the service. So we have got a request from the committee, right? The audit committee has given us a request. Now, the request is for a service, and the request for a service, the very first thing I need to think about the service is, do I have competence? And the examiner is saying, yes, I have competence because one of the partner is a qualified actuary. So I have the competence. Now things are so favorable. Now a lot of time students look at the word issue. The student look at the word issue and they think issue is something negative. Now what is negative in the 1.5 lines I wrote above? There is nothing negative. You have been approached by the committee to offer an actuarial valuation service, and the good thing is we have competence for it, so things are favorable. There is nothing adverse here, because a lot of time the student look at the word issue in this question and they think issue is negative. Issue is something negative. That is what the student thinks. Now what is basically an issue? Issue is both negative as well as positive. That is the broad definition. You should use an exam paper. Now, if I have a broad definition, I will be taking this as my 1.5 marks. See how I will be writing. I will be writing my answer saying, the audit firm can offer the service to the client, can offer the actuarial valuation service to client because they because the firm have adequate level of competence to offer this service with highest standards of quality. The audit firm can offer the actuarial valuation service to the client because the firm have adequate level of competence to offer this service with highest standards of quality. right? So this is my complete sentence. So if I have competence, if I have the level of competence, see the correlation. If I have the competence, I can offer the highest standards of quality. And if it was written, none of the partner is a qualified actuary, none of the partner is a qualified actuary, see how your sentence would change. None of the partner is a qualified actuary. I will say the audit firm cannot offer the actuarial valuation service to the client because the does not possess adequate firm does not possess adequate level of experience needed to perform this type of service. See my drafting 1 and 2, right? So for writing positive, you still get 1.5 marks. For writing positive and supporting positive, for writing positive and supporting positive, you still get 1.5 marks. And for writing negative issues, you will still get 1.5 marks. So please understand that the issue can be something favorable in the case, which you have to support and appreciate. Your examiner should know that when we have competence, it will boost the quality. You cannot take it as an obvious thing and just skip the line. That obvious thing is given in the exam paper for a student to answer, that for this obvious thing the quality will be boosted. So examiner wants to look for that you have a knowledge that the positive things boost quality, right? So that's one illustration. The second illustration from the June 13 exams, question number 2A. This was the question on ethical, professional, and quality control issues. So this question had not just the professional side, but it did had the quality control side. Now see what is the requirement of this question. It has a sentence which I'm taking here, which says the junior has performed work on going concern. Now, if I see this line in an exam paper which says junior has performed work on going concern, how would I be writing it? I would be saying that first of all, junior is not a competent person to take on risky areas of audit. Going concern is a very important and a highly subjective area of the audit, which needs careful attention of someone senior in the audit team. If junior had performed, if the junior had performed the audit of going concern, it must, if junior had performed the audit of the going concern, he must have not he must have gathered insufficient and inappropriate audit evidence on the key area, which leads to compromisation, which leads to the compromisation of audit quality. See what I wrote. I wrote the issue. Junior is not a competent person. Going concern is a very important area. If the junior has performed the work, he must not have gathered sufficient appropriate audit evidence, which leads to the impairment of quality. See my last 1.5 line. I am not classifying the issue. This is the professional issue. The junior has worked on going concern. This is a professional issue. No, I'm not classifying the issue. I'm simply telling examiner the problem within the issue. And I'm telling the examiner that if the junior has worked on the going concern, he probably so you cannot just write in the exam paper the junior worked on going concern and this must have compromised the quality of the audit, full stop. You cannot be rewarded 1.5 marks on this one sentence. See my sentence above versus this sentence. See my sentence versus the sentence down. This is my sentence and the one down is the student sentence. You have to specify how the quality will be compromised. How the quality will be compromised. You have to specify that. Specify how the quality will be compromised. See, did I answer that? How the quality will be compromised? Yes, I told examiner he must have gathered insufficient appropriate audit evidence on the key area, which leads to the compromisation of quality. Specify how the quality will be compromised. I hope all of you can hear me, right? Okay, fine, thank you. So can you feel the difference between my writing and a student writing? It is not just telling examiner this compromise the quality, but it is telling to examiner why the quality will be compromised. So it's not the quality will be compromised. It's more important specify how the quality will be compromised. So that is where you will get marks, right? Right? So the purpose of this exercise was just to illustrate that you have to broaden the definition of an issue. The issue can be positive and the issue can be negative. and you have to broaden up your exercise in terms of that it's not just telling examiner the quality will be compromised, it's more importantly telling the examiner why, how. One last example, and I'm putting a live exam paper in front of you. Number 3, this is from the December 15 paper, December 15 question number 4, and this is the B part. So you can read all these parts at the end of the session. In this case, the examiner wrote something in inverted commas. This was another question on ethical, professional, ethical and professional issues. Now the examiner wrote in the inverted commas, the engagement partner the engagement partner telephoned the finance director to set up a planning meeting. The engagement partner telephoned the finance director to set up a planning meeting, and it continues after. Now see how good this line is? That means the partner is fully aware of the responsibility that there has to be a planning meeting with the finance director. And we know the planning is such an important phase of audit that the partner should be involved in planning, and the partner should meet those charged with governance as something known as a planning meeting. So that means the partner is fully aware of his responsibility. He knew that I have to call the finance director, and he knew I have to set up a meeting so that we can kickstart the planning process of the audit. So this is again a line which would be appreciated. Professional issue. See how you write it. You will say the engagement partner seems to be fully aware of his responsibilities of his responsibilities to plan the audit before it is started. The engagement partner should hold a planning meeting with those charged with governance, and the engagement partner should hold a planning meeting with those charged with governance to identify key risky areas and to gain the knowledge of business. So the engagement partner seems to be fully aware of his responsibility. The engagement partner should hold a meeting, so on and so forth. I would not specify this is a professional issue. I will not write this. This is a professional issue. No need to write this at all in exam paper. Let me strike through this. I hope you're getting the sense of picking positive things where you think the person is doing something right in a question on ethical and professional issue, because that something right can give you marks provided you justify why is he right. Did I justify why is he right? I wrote the partner should hold a planning meeting with TCWG to identify key risky areas. So after the full stop, I justified why the partner was on the right track, why the partner was fully aware of his responsibility. You need to answer the why. You need to answer the why. So are you getting the sense of positive and negatives? I think a lot of times student just thinks about negative issues when the question comes on ethical and professional matters. I hope you will start thinking about positive matters now. Maria, this is those charged with governance. TCWG, those charged with governance. Basically the directors of the company, right? The directors and the non-executive directors of the company. That is the proper jargon, right, to be used in exam paper. Okay, is this clear with everyone now? Are you understanding the positive and negative? Mohammed Afzal, the meeting first is done by the partner and the director, and then in the later part, the partner shared the knowledge with his team. So you're doing the vice versa. The first meeting will be between the partner and the director, and the partner will then have a meeting with the team after he met the director. Is that clear, Mohammed Afzal? Okay, so all of you are clear on the structure now of the topic we are doing today? Yes, Bilal, we have to mention the positive things, but we will not tell examiner this is positive, this is negative. But we have to pick positive things from the case, and we need to justify the positive thing. Justify why negative, justify why positive. So even if you're writing a positive thing, then you have to tell examiner why. Even if you're writing a negative thing, you have to tell examiner why. Yashrab, it's better to focus on both. If you can make up your marks on negative things, then no need to focus on positive things. But if you cannot make marks on positive negative things, then you have to involve the positive things as well. Is that clear, Yashrab? And is that clear, Bilal? Yes, Muhammad Anas, we can repeat the words. If we write those charged with governance one time, those charged with governance one time, and in the bracket I put TCWG, then across my 100 marks paper, I can use the word TCWG. One time I have to use the full form. And one time when I use the full form, I will abbreviate the full form. So if I write financial statements, I will say FS, but I have to do it once. In the entire paper, I can use the word FS, but one time you have to do the full form and the abbreviation. And in the rest, you can do the short forms. No, no, no. When something is positive, you will not write actions, right? You cannot write actions for positive things. Positive things are only appreciated, right? Negative things are criticized. So let me clarify that. Suppose if there is something positive, if you are writing the positive issue, then the positive issue will give you 1.5 marks. But if you're writing a negative issue, the negative issue will give you 1.5 marks. But because it is a negative issue, so you also need to recommend action. You also need to recommend the rectification. So for every negative thing, you need to recommend an action. So when you recommend an action, you get 1 mark. So that means for the negative issue, you are scoring in all a 2.5 marks, because with the negative issue you have to write an action. Negative issue, 1.5 marks. Why? And positive issue is 1.5 marks. Why? Right? So positive issue will only give you 1.5 marks because there is no action for positive issue, right? But the negative issue will give you 2.5 marks because there is an issue which needs to be resolved. So when you resolve it, when you write an action, you will take another 1 mark. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, let's first start with a quick case, then take you to a big case. Okay, the first case we are starting is June 15, question number 4. If all of you can see this June 15, question number 4. right? This is the question 4 of the June 15 exams, right? So this is the June 15 exams, question number 4. Now let's see what are the requirements. This is a very typical question which says comment, comment on the quality control, ethical and professional issues, and recommend any actions. So we know the marking scheme, right? That for every issue we'll get 1.5 marks. For every issue we'll get 1.5 marks, and for every action we'll get 1 mark. Now I need to illustrate something as quickly as possible in this question because I need to spend my time on the June 17 question, which is a very challenging and a very big question. Again, the answers of all these questions I'm discussing with you are shared with you so you can read them at your free time. But let me illustrate you one thing. Now, a lot of time what happens that a student takes a question like such in exam paper where 3 things have to be discussed. And suppose there is a part B. If you look at the part B, which has 5 marks. Now, what a student would do, that the student would put a heading in exam paper, part B, the student would put a heading, June 2015, question 4B, and he will say, I have to do 4 things. So he will say, okay, let's put headings. Quality control issues, okay, ethical issues, professional issues, and then put another heading, actions. If you use such a format, you are calling yourself into trouble because half the time in an exam paper you will be confused in classifying the problem. There is no marks for the classification of the problem. There are marks when you tell examiner why it is a problem, whatever the problem is. The marks is for the why. I just wrote some of the answers above with you, right? I didn't specify the class of the issue. The marks is for the why. Whether you are favoring it or you are against it, you have to speak of the why. But the marks is not for the classification, because if you do such a format, half the time you will be thinking, should I put it under the quality? No. Should I put it under the professional? No. Should I put it under the ethical? So if you put a format like such an exam paper, this is an absolute wrong format which should not be used. So no classifications, right? So this is absolutely a wrong format. Absolutely a wrong format, right? What is the right format? The right format is, I can put the headings, issues and actions, issues and actions. If you want to use headings, you can then put 2 headings, issues and actions. Rather than classifying the issues, you're saying issues, whatever the issues are, right? Now, second thing, a lot of time when a student is reading a case, like the 5 marks case in front of you, the student will think because the examiner is asking comment on the quality control, ethical, and professional issues, that means all three of them will be present in the case. That is absolutely wrong. That requirement is for all three parts. It does not says comment on the quality control, ethical, and professional issues raised in respect of the audit of the wire company. That is ABC. So in the ABC, there might be some parts ethical, some parts professional, some parts quality control. But if you believe that within every part you will get all three of them, that is absolutely wrong. Because I've seen so many students that if they find an ethical problem, they will start searching for a professional problem, even though there might be a case where the professional problem is absent. And even if they find a professional problem, they will start to search for an ethical problem, even though the ethical problem is absent in the case. You have to make up your marks, 5 marks. If you have made up your 5 marks, that is it. Irrespective whether you wrote ethics, irrespective whether you wrote professional, irrespective whether you wrote quality control. So first of all, you're not classifying. Second of all, you should not be in any doubts that each of the A, each of the B, each of the C have all three of them. It's up to the examiner. The examiner can make one part on one thing. There might be a part which is just on ethics and there is no quality control and no ethics, no professional in it. So please, no classifications and not be in any illusion that each part have everything. Can you just quickly read up the B part and see how can you make up your 5 marks? Every issue will give you 1.5 mark and every action will give you 1 mark. Can you just quickly read the B part? Okay, if you have read the B part, I hope all of you agree there is no ethical problem in the B part. There is no ethical problem in the B part. Is that true? There is no ethical problem in the B part. Is that true? So see, the question was saying comment on the ethical, quality control, and professional issues. So is that proving my point? That it's not necessarily that you have all three present in each part. So is there any ethics in the B part? Not at all, right? So that means the question is either on professional or quality control, but we are not classifying the issues. We're just picking up the problem and scoring 1.5 marks. Now there was another question which is worthwhile for others to listen. There was a question from Noshad. He was asking, what if I know the issues and I don't know the actions? So can I write all issues without writing the actions and I still take my marks? The answer is yes. There is no cap. There is no cap. Just like the class yesterday, there is no cap, right? The examiner is not saying marks are equally divided, or the examiner is not saying half the marks are for issues and half the marks are for action. So even if you write all issues without any action, you can still score your 5 marks. So if you are weak on actions, you can write all issues. But if you're good on actions, then you can write an issue and action together. There is no cap, right? There is no cap, just like the question yesterday. So when there is no cap, it's not necessarily you write the actions. Even if you write the issues, the examiner will not penalize you for that. just like this exercise we did yesterday, right? Okay, now let's go back to the question. I'm just making a sketch because again, the complete answer is shared with you. It says some of the audit work was performed by the overseas office of bank in an offshoring arrangement. So some of the work is performed by the overseas office of the bank company, right? In an offshoring arrangement. This practice is encouraged by bank whose managing partners see it as a way of improving efficiency. So we are starting with something very positive. Offshoring arrangement is a permissible arrangement whereby an audit firm can offshore work to its overseas office. And this practice is encouraged, which is very good. This is something very good on part of the managing partner. So you will appreciate the managing partner, that the managing partner is encouraging the offshoring arrangement. And what is the objective of offshoring arrangement? They want to bring in the efficiency, which is so good. So that is something favorable to start off with. So what should be your first point? Your first issue would be number one, right? Offshoring is a permissible arrangement, so I put that as my safeguard or action. Then I come to the issue, and in the issue I write number one, the managing partners took a very right decision to offshore work to an overseas office because offshoring allows bank company offshoring allows bank company to focus on critical tasks, which improves the overall efficiency. Just like outsourcing, you are familiar with that word outsourcing, right? Just like outsourcing, because when we outsource, we can focus on the critical task, and that brings efficiency in an organization. So same happens with the audit firm. If the audit firm offshores something to its overseas office, so the audit firm can focus on the critical task, and that will bring efficiency to bank and company. Now, normally these overseas office works at cheap cost. Normally, one audit firm outsource work to its cheaper office. For example, if PricewaterhouseCooper in London outsource works to PricewaterhouseCooper in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has plenty of cheap labor, so some miscellaneous works like numerical checks, arithmetical checks, some miscellaneous work can be done by the PwC Pakistan. It will save a lot of cost for PwC London, and it will save a lot of time for PwC London. For having an arithmetical checks or numerical checks, we don't need to have a knowledge of business, right? So even if the client is of PwC London, but the arithmetical check is being done by PwC Pakistan, PwC Pakistan does not need to have the knowledge of business, right, to do the arithmetical checks. But that will save so much time of PwC London, and that will save so much cost of PwC London, because the resources are expensive in PwC London and the resources are cheap in PwC Pakistan. And obviously that is an opportunity for Pakistan having a cheap labor. Okay, so the managing partner took a very right decision, right? Number one. Okay, number two, the overseas office performs work at a low cost, and it was largely low risk and non-judgmental work included in this arrangement For example, numerical check on documents. So far, the work allocation is very right because the office work at low cost. So what work have we given to them? We have given them low risk work and we have given them non-judgmental work. So will it compromise the quality? Not at all, because we have given them low risk work, low cost, low risk. So that will not compromise the quality. If it would have been low cost and high risk, that would have compromised the quality. So what is good here? Number two, the work allocation, the work allocation as part of the offshoring arrangement is adequate as it includes low risk work and non-judgmental work because the overseas office works at low cost. So it is good to engage the low cost office. It is good to engage the low cost office in non-risky areas. Obviously, there is no risk, right? Engaging your low cost office in non-risky areas. The quality will not be compromised, right? But the only problem in this question was they read the minutes of the board meeting, which is something very risky and judgmental because for reading the minutes, you need to have the knowledge of the business and the overseas office does not have the knowledge of business. So this is the first negative problem you're speaking of. You're saying the overseas office read the minutes, read the minutes of the board meeting, which is a judgmental task, which is a judgmental task because they identified relevant they identified relevant minutes. They identify relevant minutes from their reading. To read board minutes, to read board minutes, the oversee to read board minutes, there should be a knowledge of business and the overseas office and the overseas office does not have any knowledge of business. So the overall quality will be compromised. Overall quality will be compromised. See, quality becomes output of an input. So the overall quality will be compromised. In terms of the minutes read by overseas office. Now see, three issues means 4.5 marks. Three issue means 4.5 marks, and one action offshoring is permissible. And another action, because I did the mistake, so another action is bank company, bank company should not give critical task, should not give critical task to overseas office in future to avoid any compromise, to avoid any impairment of the quality, to avoid any impairment of quality. So two actions and three issues. So three issues means 4.5 marks and two action means 2 marks. So technically you are standing at 6.5 marks. You just need 5.5. But the issue number one and the issue number two was positive. There was nothing negative with the first two issues. If you does not know the positive issue, how will you score your 5 marks in this question? If a student does not know the positive issues, how can you score your 5 marks in this question? That is a very important question, right? I'm putting to you. If a student does not know positive issues, how will you score 5 marks in this question? You cannot score 5 marks in this question. If there is only one negative problem, right? The board minutes. One negative problem and one action. Maximum how many marks? 2.5 marks. Are you getting the clarity on picking positive things and writing them down, as well as picking the negative things and writing them down, and then writing in the action? But did for any issue, I told the examiner this is a professional issue? Did so? Did I wrote for any issue this is a professional issue? Did I wrote this is an ethical issue? Did I wrote this is a quality control issue? Yes, but because the board minutes were read by the local office, this leads to the compromisation of quality, because that is my statement. My statement is quality is the output of the input. So the local office read the minutes. That was the input. So because the input was wrong, the input was wrong, the input is wrong, so the quality has to be compromised. So if you remember my statement, wrong input compromise the quality. So in the exam, if you pick up the wrong input, it's very easier for you to write the quality is being compromised. I hope that is easy for you. If you pick a wrong input, the quality will be compromised automatically. Is everyone clear on that? So have any remarkable change come in the last 1.5 hours before entering the session and now halfway through the session? Asad, if there is a wrong input, like the local office read the board minutes, that was a wrong input, right? That was something negative. So when there is something negative, ultimately the quality will be compromised, because for every negative input, the quality will be compromised. For every negative input, the quality will be compromised. But for every positive input, the quality will not be. But for every negative input, the quality will be compromised. So if you found any negative thing in a question, automatically compromise the quality. Is that clear, Asad? See, P7 is all about techniques. P7 is all about techniques. Whichever topic you do in P7, it is all techniques. And if you lack techniques, you will fail in P7. P7 is all about your understanding of the techniques. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this crash course, right? Building up your techniques. Because the good you are on the marking schemes, the good you are in knowing what is to be done, how it is to be done, how we should take marks, the better you can perform in your actual exams. Okay, we're now taking the first break. Post break, we'll start with a very challenging question, which is the question 2 of a very recent paper, which is the June 17 exams. Those of you who have the hard copy of this question, I would prefer within the break you start reading it, because it's a very long question. So I'll prefer those of you who have the hard copy of the question 2 June 17 exams, start reading the question 2 of the June 17 exams. And I am putting it on the screen as well, but I cannot put the whole question on the screen. You have to read anywhere through your hard copies, because on the screen I can show just the start of the question. Question 2 of the June 17 exams. Okay, we're taking a break for 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll resume directly with this question two, which will give you maximum knowledge of the topic we are in today. Uh, Ethical issues, I'm not doing anything on that because you should be good on ethical issues. You can see in my answers. But the practice I have to do is on professional and quality control. That's exactly what I'm trying to do since the start of the lecture, because I believe students are good on ethics but weak on quality and professional side, right? So I have to address that side more clearly in my crash course. Okay, let's take a break and resume back in 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, welcome back post break, and we are directly starting with June 2017, question number 2. Now, this has been the more recent question on this topic, where student tends to take a lot of fear. Let's see how you understand this question and the challenge of this question. If I take you to the requirements of this question 2 of the June 17 exams, the requirements of this question, this is a 25 marks question. This is question 2, right, which is mandatory. It says, in respect of the matters described above, comment on the quality of the planning and performance of the group audit. Comment on the quality of planning. Now, I discussed with you in my lecture at the start of the crash course that a lack of planning can compromise the quality, right? A lack of performance can compromise the quality. So see, these are the two inputs. These are the two inputs, right, of the these are the two inputs which can lead to the compromisation of the quality, right? Comment on the quality of the planning and performance of the group audit, discussing the quality control and other professional issues. So examiner is not asking for ethics here, right? Examiner is asking for discuss the quality control and other professional issues raised. Then the second requirement says, recommend any further action. Now, you know, actions are part and parcel of these questions on ethics, professional, and quality control, and we take actions to resolve a problem. So, recommend further actions including relevant audit procedures to be taken by your firm prior to finalizing the group audit report. So, that means we are standing at the stage of completion prior to finalizing the group audit report. So what we should do, we should identify the quality control and professional issues for each of the matters above, recommending actions, but there is an unusual thing here, relevant audit procedures. Now we were discussing them yesterday in day 2, that procedures is the CVRM. The procedures have to come from the case. We should have a verb, we should have a reason and marks, right? Okay, now how many issues are there in the case? In the case, we have 3 issues. One is C, the Daisy company. One is B, the Geranium company. And one is A, the Hyacinth company. So there are 3 things in the case. Now, I think I've mentioned that in the class yesterday, that when you are attempting a question like such, you should plan the question first. So let's do the planning for question. Now, what we have Hyacinth, right? We have Geranium and we have Daisy 3. And how many things we have to work upon? We have to work upon the quality and professional issues, right? We have to work on, and each will give us how many marks? 1.5 marks each. Okay, then we have to write in the actions. Actions will give us 1 mark per action, and procedures will give us 1 mark per procedure. So how many marks we have to take on Hyacinth? We have 9 marks for Hyacinth, 7 marks for Geranium. So we have total 9 marks for Hyacinth. We have total 7 marks for Geranium, and we have total 9 marks for Daisy, right? You have to make a structure like such an exam paper as a planning. This is not the way of answering the question, right? This is just a planning because that will really make you clear what you should be doing. Now see, I have a table in front of me which tells me, okay, I have to work on hyacinth, I have to work on geranium, I have to work on daisy. Now technically, what will be my headings? My first heading in the exam paper would be hyacinth, and under hyacinth, my first heading would be issues, and my second heading would be actions slash procedures. I will not classify this is an action, this is a procedure, because an action starts with a verb and a procedure starts with a verb. But there is a difference between the objective, just for the sake of knowledge, just for the sake of knowledge. The actions are taken, actions are taken to resolve a problem, to resolve a problem that pertains to the company or the management. And procedures are performed to gather sufficient appropriate audit evidence. But there is similarity, right? An action starts with a verb, starts with a verb, and the procedure also, when you're writing a procedure, the procedure starts with verb too. But most of the time, the verb used in action is discuss, because you're resolving a problem, right? So you will say discuss. That is the most common verb used in actions. In procedures, you can do anything. Procedures, you can review, you can recalculate, you can discuss, you can analyze. So, but most of the time, the actions are taken with the word discuss. So, actions are taken to resolve a problem, procedures are taken to perform to gather evidence. Both have 1 mark, so you will not classify them, because again, you will waste time in exam paper to determine is it an action, is it a procedure. So, come out of that confusion. Just write a heading, issue, action slash procedure. So, whatever you're writing under action slash procedure will give you 1 mark, right? Okay. Now, we have to take the 9 marks, right? And is the examiner telling us we have a cap? Is the examiner saying you have to write this much actions, this much procedures, and this much issues? No, right? There is no cap. So when there is no cap, that means a student is flexible in taking 9 marks. It's up to you. You write more actions, less issues. You write more issues, less actions. You write more procedures, less actions. You write no procedures and all actions. So you have to come to 9 marks, whichever way you adopt. So there is no cap, right? So student is flexible in taking the 9 marks. So this is a note for the student, right? Okay, now let's do one good exercise today. Let's do hyacinth today and geranium and daisy. You can do yourself then. Okay, if I take you to okay, if I take you to hyacinth, we have 9 marks for hyacinth. I'll read, I'll stop, and we'll classify the problem. The group companies supply each other with various chemical products to be used in manufacture of chemical. Audit work performed at the interim stage. So we have to be critical on what? How audit is planned and performed. So examiner was saying how audit is planned and performed. So audit work performed at the interim stage at Hyacinth Company, including walkthrough procedures and internal control evaluations. Including the walkthrough and internal control evaluation means the test of controls, concluded that the internal controls over the intra-group transactions were not effective, and this was documented in the audit file. So we concluded that the internal controls are not effective, and this was documented in the audit file. I hope you remember the question we did yesterday. We had the same problem in asset held for sale yesterday, that the problem was noted, but it was not discussed with the management. If there is a weakness in the internal control system, should we only note it, or should we also inform the management of the weakness in the internal control system? Should we inform management of the weaknesses in the internal control system, or we just note the problem? This was exactly the same case we had in a question we were doing yesterday. I think the capital expenditure, right? That we noted the weakness, but we didn't inform the weakness to management. Is everyone getting my point? So should we inform management about the weaknesses they have in over the intra-group transactions? Right? So we concluded that the controls are ineffective, and this was documented in the audit file. We just documented it, but we didn't inform the management. So what should I be writing in my first answer? I got my first action. My first action should be that discuss I should discuss the internal control weaknesses over the inter intra-group transactions with those charged with governance. See, actions are taken to resolve a problem. So am I resolving the problem? Discuss the internal control weakness over the intra-group transactions. Because if I discuss the problems, the management will take proper action to resolve it. So just noting the problem is not an issue, is not a solution, right? It's important to tell management that there are weaknesses in the internal control system, right? Second, at the final audit, at the final audit, the test of controls were performed to confirm this the case. Is that a waste of time when we did something at the interim stage? We are doing the same thing at the final stage. When at the interim stage, I did the test of controls and I concluded that the controls are weak, why am I repeating the same procedure at the final audit? It is a rule of thumb that when at the interim stage, it is concluded that the controls are ineffective, then at the final stage, you should directly start with substantive testing. You cannot do the same procedure twice in the audit. That is not efficiency. That is inefficiency. See, we did the same thing two times. Did we tested the controls at the interim stage? And are we testing the controls at the final stage on the same thing, on the intra-group transactions? So have we wasted the time? Is that a professional issue? So should I write that under my issue number 1? What's my first issue? We had a waste of time in repeating the same procedure twice in the same twice, that is at the interim stage and at and the final stage. No, Danish. Interim stage, we do the walkthroughs and the internal control evaluations to see how good the systems are. So they're part of the interim audit. They're not part of the planning, because at the interim audit, we do the test of controls. At the final audit, we do the substantive procedures. So what we did wrong is that at the interim audit, we did the right procedure, but at the final audit, we did the same procedure again. We wasted our time. Which once we know that the controls are ineffective, why are we doing the DOCs again? We should have jumped to substantive procedures. Is that clear, Danish? So it was a waste of time in repeating the same procedure twice, that is at the interim stage and the final stage, which caused inefficiencies in the audit, which caused inefficiencies in the audit process. So waste of time in repeating the same procedure twice at the interim stage, which caused inefficiencies in the audit. And the inefficiencies can compromise the quality of audit. The input, right? The input leads to output. The input was inefficiencies, and the inefficiencies can compromise the quality of audit. Now, action and a procedure. That means, did I perform the substantive procedures? Did I perform the substantive procedures? Did I perform the substantive procedures on the intra-group transactions? So should I be performing them? Because the examiner says actions and further procedures. So if something which I have not done, I hope you remember that type 2 question we were doing yesterday, that comment on the sufficiency and recommend further procedures. So where we thought the auditor has not performed procedures on asset held for sale, we perform the procedures. So have we performed procedures on the intra-group transactions? No. So should I be writing my number 2 here? Perform substantive procedures. Perform substantive procedures on the intra-group transactions to ensure they are eliminated on consolidation. So if auditor has not done something, I have to write a procedure, right? If there is a problem, I have to take an action. Okay, then next it says the test of control confirms that the intra-group transactions are not being separately identified in the group accounting system. Intra-group transactions are not separately identified in the group systems. Intra-group transactions are not separately identified in the group accounting system. Should I discuss with the management why they are not separately identified in the group accounting systems? So should I take an action? Because this is a problem which relates with the company. So should I take an action to resolve it? Should I discuss with the management? With discuss with the group management as to why the intra-group transactions are not separately identified. And then I should ask the management, discuss how consolidation is performed, how consolidation process is carried out in absence of in absence of not not separately identifying the intra group transactions. How management carries out the consolidation if they're not separately identifying the intra group transactions? So I have to discuss so many things with management. So I have to discuss with management why you don't separately identify them. And then I should ask management how you do the consolidation in the absence of not identifying the intra-group transactions, how you ensure they are eliminated. Then next it says, and the reconciliations of the amount owed between subsidiaries are not performed. Even we don't make the reconciliation of the amount receivable and payable between the subsidiaries. So should I be asking management why you do not do a reconciliation of the receivables and payables between the subsidiaries? So should I be discussing with the management, discuss why no reconciliations are performed for receivables and payables, for receivables and payables within the group companies. So see, already 5 marks are coming under actions and procedures. One issue, one issue is 1.5 mark. So 5 plus 1 issue is giving me 6.5 marks out of the 9 marks. But see, actions and procedures are starting with verb: discuss, perform, discuss. Actions, I did mention that, right? Most of the time the action starts with discuss because you need to resolve the problem. Okay, if I go back to the case, the group audit manager concluded that on the working papers, that as intra-group balances are cancelled on consolidation, there is no impact on the group audit and no further work is necessary. Is that the right conclusion of the group audit manager? The group audit manager is saying intra-group balances are cancelled on consolidation. This issue has no impact on group audit. And no further work is necessary. Do you agree with the conclusion of the group audit manager? Should should we ensure that the intra-group transactions are eliminated? Should we perform substantive procedures on consolidation? But the manager is saying because they are cancelled, there is no need to check them. Should the auditor check they are cancelled? Should the auditor confirm they are cancelled? So is that something where the manager took the wrong decision? So see, we're getting a second issue. The second issue is the manager took a wrong judgment. The manager took a wrong judgment. I told you in the lecture at the start of the crash course that the examiner says when quality is compromised because of the judgments. Now see, the manager took a wrong judgment here. Examiner says if there is any problem with the judgment, it will compromise the quality because the input is the judgment, the output is the quality. The manager took a wrong judgment. And that means no work was performed on the elimination of the intra group transactions. That means no work was performed on elimination of the intra group transactions. Thus, no evidence was gathered on the group transactions because of the manager wrong decision, which leads to the compromising of quality. Again, a wrong input. The wrong judgment was a wrong input. So the wrong input led to no evidence, and no evidence compromised the quality. So what was the wrong input? The wrong input was the wrong judgment. In the first case, what was the wrong input? Waste of time, repeating the same procedure. So repeating the same procedure was the wrong input, which compromised the quality. Danish, the point 3 and 4 is basically the weaknesses. When I find a weakness, should I not discuss with the management why you do so? If the management does not do something, should I ask management why you don't do something? What is the rationale? What is the justification behind it? Why the intra-group transactions are not separately identified? Should not I ask this to the management? Should I not take their basis justification why they do not do so? So I'm simply discussing with the management in point 3 and 4 that why the intragroup transactions are not separately identified. What's the basis? I want to listen to the management. I want to listen to the point of view. And I am more worried that if they're not separately identified, how the consolidation process is carried out. Is that clear, Danish? Right now, technically, see, I have 5 actions and procedures, 5 marks. I have 2 issues, 3 marks. So technically, I'm standing at the round of effect for 8 marks. One more issue, and I'll take my 9 marks. Right? So you have to complete this yourself, complete the rest yourself, complete the rest of Hyacinth, complete the rest of Hyacinth yourself. I just need to give you a track of this question. I hope all of you have picked the track: actions, procedures, issues. And every issue will give you 1.5 mark. Then you have to think of an action and a procedure. You're not classifying the action and procedure. So whatever you are writing under the action, under the heading of action and procedure, will give you 1 mark. So I used one heading, right? Action slash procedure and issues. But I hope you're getting the sense of this table here. I would encourage that you make table like such in exam paper, because such tables will really give you a clear picture what you should be doing. So will you be making such sketches in exam tables to know how much things you have to do? And will you ensure whether there is a cap or there is no cap? Is no cap an opportunity for you? If there is no cap, is that an opportunity for you? Okay, so I have given you a start of the June 15 paper, and then I left for rest to be done by you. I've given you a start of the June 17 paper, and I'm leaving the rest for you to be done. Let's do the third one. I'm giving you a start of the another very important paper which has come in the recent past, which is June 16 question number 2. Question 2 of the June 16 exams. So at least we can do variety of the papers which have come in recent past, so that you can continue with the rest yourself. Right, this is the question 2 of the June 16 exams. Okay, so let's put a heading now. Let's plan the June 16 exams. June 16 exams, and the question number 2. Okay, let's see what are requirements of the question 2 part A. See the requirements, very typical requirements. Comment on the quality of the audit performed. Discussing the quality control, ethical and professional issues. So comment on the quality of the audit performed, discussing the quality, ethical and professional issues. So comment on the quality. Comment on the quality means what? The output. If the input is weak, the output will be affected. So if I have a negative input, so will I comment on the quality? If there is a negative input, will I comment on the quality? Will I say the quality will be compromised because of the weak input? Is everyone getting my point? Comment on the quality, discussing the quality control, ethical and other professional issues. So if there is a weak input, will I comment on the quality of the audit performed? Will I say to the examiner the quality is compromised? So this question is a typical question for 13 marks. Now you know how will you take your 13 marks? Every issue will be divided by 1.5 marks. So how many issues should I find? 13 divided by 1.5. How many issues? Attendees, I hope you are physically and mentally present, or you have gone into the sleeping mode. 13 divided by 1.5 is equal to how much? 9. So how many issues we should find from the case? 9 issues. So should we put 9 issues as headings? Let's see. The word file. Issues. Okay, what's the first? Can you just read this much case quickly? Rest you will do yourself, right? Can you read this much case? See how many issues can you found in this question? Ethical, professional, quality control. Just read the paragraphs in front of your screen, which I have highlighted with a blue box. I'm giving you 5 minutes. Be quick so I can write the answer for the 3 paragraphs. Okay, have all of you read this? Okay, that's good enough, right? Let's see the problems. I think the problems here are more easier to pick in. It says Stanley. Stanley is a food processor selling its product to wholesalers. From your review of the audit working paper, you noted that the level of materiality was determined to be 1.5 million at the planning stage, and this materiality threshold has been used throughout. There is no evidence on the audit file that this threshold has been reviewed during the course of audit. Should we review the materiality level throughout the process of audit? So have we done a mistake here? We didn't review the materiality level throughout the process of the audit, right? You noted that the level of materiality was determined to be 1.5 million. Yes, that is a mistake, right? So the first issue, materiality level was not reviewed throughout the audit. Rather, it was held as static at $1.5 million. I hope all of you know that materiality changes with any change in risk during the audit. Materiality changes with any change in risk during the audit, right? And risk and materiality has an inverse relationship. Risk and materiality has inverse relationship. Now, if I have not reviewed my materiality level, that means either either I have done more work or less work. Suppose the materiality level should have been changed from 1.5 to 1 million. So if the materiality level changed from 1.5 to 1, I should do more work. But I kept it constant at 1.5. So can there be a blunder on my part that I have done more work or less work? What if the materiality level should have been revised from 1.5 to 2? Then I've done more work. And what if the materiality level should have been revised from 1.5 to 1? Then I've done less work. So I kept the materiality constant. So either I have done less work or more work in the context of keeping it static, which must have compromised my quality, which must have compromised the quality of work, because I kept the materiality static. So keeping it static must have compromised the quality of work. The issue number 2, from your review of the audit planning, you know that the new packing machine with a cost of 1.6 million was acquired and is recognized in the draft financial position at a carrying amount of 1.4 million at 31st December 2015. Is 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 the packing machine material? Is the packing machine material? I did mention that on the day one, that wherever possible, comment on the materiality. Wherever possible, comment on the materiality. That is a key tip in P7. Is packing machine material? Yes, because we will see the cost, not the book value. We will see the cost, not the book value. So we have to make an impression. The packing line or the packing machine is material as it is $1.6 million, which is above the materiality threshold, which is above the materiality threshold. Packing machine is material as it is $1.6 million, which is above the materiality threshold. Now I No, Asad, we are not taking 1.4 million because 1.4 million is the book value. Examiner has given us both the values, the cost and the book value. When the examiner give us both, we'll find materiality on the cost, not the book value. So we'll see the cost of the packing line, not the book value. Had no cost been given, then obviously we would have taken the book value. But when we have an option of a book value and a cost, we'll take the cost to determine the materiality. Is Asad, you're not getting my point. I'm saying when the examiner gives you both the book value and the cost, will work on the cost, not the book value. So we'll find the materiality on the basis of the cost of the packing line, not the book value of the packing line. But had it not been given, had only one of them is given, then we'll use the one of them. But because we have given two of them, so which one will we use? We will use the cost, not the book value. Okay, let's go back and see what's else here. The packing machine is located at the premises of the Aberdeen Company, a distribution company which is used to pack and distribute a significant proportion of the company's product. The machine has not been physically verified by the audit team member. Is that a big blunder we have done? The machine has not been physically verified. Machine was not physically verified. That means no evidence gathered, no evidence gathered on the existence of the machine. Thus quality was right. So see, the question on quality control and professional issues can be on the stage of evidence. If yesterday we were doing a type 2 question on evidence, but see, the same problems are now coming under quality control and professional problems, because professional relates with the stages of audit. So machine not physically verified, right? Okay, then what it says, the audit working paper conclude that we have obtained the purchase invoice and order in relation to the machine, and therefore we can conclude that the asset is valued and it exists. How can we ensure asset exists on the basis of the purchase invoice? The purchase invoice can only tell you the ownership of the asset, not the existence of the asset. So can we verify the existence on the basis of the purchase invoice, or should we go down and see from our eyes that the machine exists? And how can we check the valuation from the purchase invoice? The valuation is basically the depreciation of the packing machine. We had not done anything on the depreciation. So how can we conclude the valuation without doing anything on the depreciation? Many problems, right? The first problem is purchase invoice purchase invoice only give evidence for ownership. Purchase invoice only give evidence for ownership, not existence. And then more importantly, purchase invoice purchase invoice only tells about cost of the machine, not the valuation, because valuation relates with the depreciation. The valuation relates with the depreciation, with its book value, with its net book value. So we have not done anything on depreciation. We have not done anything on the ownership. So that means the quality is compromised, because we did nothing on existence, and we did nothing on depreciation, or we did nothing on the valuation. So that means we have obtained insufficient and inappropriate audit evidence. Suppose this question comes in the type 2 question. So will you comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence? Put the same question into the context of the class yesterday, the type 2 question. So you will be commenting on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence. But today you are commenting on the quality is being compromised. No, Danish, it was recorded at the cost initially, but currently its book value is 1.4. Obviously, you must have taken the packing machine some months ago. So you must have charged depreciation for some months on a pro rata basis. So you bought it at 1.6, but at the end of the year, it has been held at the book value, which is perfectly fine. So no issues with that. I hope that's clear, Danish. Okay, then last point. In addition, the managing director of Aberdeen has confirmed in writing that the machine is located at their premises and is working condition. No further work needed in respect of this item. Can we just rely on the representation of the Aberdeen managing director that the machine is located at their premises? Danish, which point? Which one? The point number one. Tell me the number. The number one. The number one has nothing to do with packing machine. It's to do with materiality. Okay. Number two. The number two is just to determine the materiality of the packing machine, because if something is material, I have to do work on it. Packing machine was material, but I didn't check the material packing machine for existence. I didn't check the material packing machine for depreciation. So that means I compromise my quality. Why I determine the materiality? I determine the materiality to judge that the packing machine was an important area and I should have worked on the important area, but I didn't work on the important area. Is that clear? So the point number seven, right? Can we rely alone on the representation? Can we rely alone on the representation? Can we rely alone on the representation? No. What we should do? We should we should had visited the Aberdeen company. We should have visited the Aberdeen company ourselves to check the physical existence. We did that yesterday in the class, right? Evidence gathered by the auditor himself is more reliable than the representation. Representation is the last resort. We just trusted the representation of the Aberdeen managing director that the machine is located. But we should have gone and seen ourselves. Seen ourselves is more important, right, than relying on the representation of the Aberdeen company. Right? So alone representation compromise the quality of audit work performed. And you will continue the rest of the answer. See, so many points, almost like 7 points till the time we reach the para. We did the para 1, we did the para 2. So till the end of the para 2, we got 7 points. Almost like 10 marks. There is still a para after that which relates with inventory. Then towards the end of this, you can see the ethical issues. This paragraph is about ethical issues. This is so easy in exam paper. You will read the last paragraph for ethical issues once the session ends, right? So first, tell me, no, why Muhammad Afzal, you have to see the requirements to see what you have to write. Why are you putting such an illogical question? The question says, comment on the quality of the audit performed, discussing the quality control, ethical and other professional issues raised. So why will we write procedures in this question? Is the examiner asking us to write procedures? In the hyacinth question we did, the examiner was saying recommend actions and further procedure. So if the examiner specify, then only we will write. Why will we write when the examiner is not specifying? Is that clear, Muhammad Afzal? So a bit shocking question, right? But I hope that's mitigated. No, Maham, this point was discussed yesterday. I hope you were in the session yesterday. We very specifically discussed that there is no mark for quoting the reference number or the name of the standard. There is no mark for quoting the reference number and the name of the standard. It's only about the content. It's only about the content. If you're writing the content of a standard, that's good. But to name the standard and to give the reference of the standard does not carry any marks. I think this was clearly discussed yesterday, and I shown you the examiner article as well. I think that was on day 1 or day 2 somewhere. But irrespective of that, I hope Maham you're clear with the justification I've given you. Okay, now you need to answer some of my questions. Number one, have you got to know a clear structure of ethical, professional, and quality control issues, which I did in the first 1 hour of the crash course? Okay. Second question, have I informed you of the 3 articles you will be reading? Okay, good. Are you very clear of the marking schemes? What marking schemes to be used? Okay, good enough. Then next, are you clear about that when you are reading a case, from a case you will find up the problems, but it's not about classifying the problems? Will you classify the problem? Will you classify the problem? No. Will you tell why it is a problem? Will you tell why it is a problem? Yes. And will will the wrong input compromise the quality? Will any wrong input in the question compromise the quality? So are you getting my sentence which I used at the beginning of the crash course, that audit quality is the output of many inputs, and the many inputs are ethical and professional? So if there is any issue in ethics or any issue in professional, it will compromise the quality. So please ensure that you complete the June 16 question 2, which I just started to do with you, the Stanley. Please also ensure that you complete the hyacinth question, and please also ensure you do the June 15 question. At least the 3 questions I've given you in the session today, do complete them. Do complete them with all what you learned today, with all what you learned today. But please remember, before you attack an answer, before you attack an answer, try spending 2 to 3 minutes on the planning, because the planning is so very essential. You you The planning can be a lifesaver for you in June 18 exams. For 5 minutes, plan the answer. For 5 minutes, see what is the examiner asking you. Make a table, make a grid, see how many things the examiner is asking you, see the marks allocation. Then that table, the marks allocation will make the things clarified for you. So I believe a lot of time we don't do a proper planning, because a proper planning will make a picture clear in front of me and you. And then when we start writing the answer, we can be so very effective. Now, I need to make one clarification. I was just watching the WhatsApp group of the crash course. There was some confusion about the webinar which relates to the accounting standards, which will be conducted by me and Hussain Kazi jointly, where 3 hours belongs to me and 3 hours belongs to Hussain Kazi. And Hussain Kazi will cover the more important accounting standards for June 18 exams, and I will cover how to properly write a treatment in P7. Now, my webinar is on Wednesday, and Hussain Kazi webinar is likely on Saturday or Sunday. But there is an extra fees for this webinar, because this is a separate webinar. So I floated both the webinars initially. One was the crash course, and one was the accounting standard webinar. So some of the student got misunderstood on it. So the crash course in which you are enrolled, you have a last day tomorrow, right? Which is reporting, which was spread on 4 days, right? Then I'll give you a mock paper. Those of you who have enrolled for mock paper assessments, I'll give you a mock paper on Wednesday. You will solve the mock paper and you will submit me the answer of the mock paper, either as a scan copy, or you will email me the answer. So I will be needing 2 to 3 days after you submit me your answer to respond to your marks and the weaknesses. But if you are interested in attending the accounting standards webinar, that is a separate webinar which will be conducted on Wednesday, which is the part related to me, and then the remaining part. So if you are interested in that, that has a fees of $20, right? And the procedures are mentioned on the group, so you can take the procedures from the group. Right, so on the first day we did the risk, on the second day we did the evidence, on the third day today we're doing the ethical and professional issues, and the fourth day as per the agenda tomorrow is reporting. Now, please, all attendees, those of you who have paid a fees of 7,000, you are eligible for the mock assessments, and I'll be sharing uh, the mock paper on the basis of the probable topics which come in June 18 exams on Thursday, only to those candidates who have paid the full crash fees, which is 7,000. And those of you who have paid 6,000, you're not eligible for the mock assessment. And the accounting standard webinar is a separate exercise. So if you want to get enrolled in accounting standard webinar, that is a separate exercise if you want to be part of it. So you have to take your decision on that. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Because there was a lot of confusion on the WhatsApp group created by 2 to 3 students about the accounting standard webinar. So I thought it is better to make it clarified on this platform to everyone. Okay, fine. Those of you who want to get the mock assessment and have paid the 6,000 fees, you can pay the remainder. That's fine. So no issues with that. And I hope you had a productive session today, and you must have learned some clarifications on the topic for which we were meeting today. Obviously, the mock paper will be emailed to every participant. The mock paper will be emailed to every participant on Thursday, those who are registered and are eligible for it, right? Is there any other question on mock fees? Because now you have lost your focus on ethical and professional, and you're focused more on fees, mock, when to pay, how to pay. I hope all of you are clear on that. I will email the mock paper. Don't be worried about that. I'll tell you when and how will you get the mock paper. Don't worry about that. That is on Thursday, so plenty of time for that. And I'll tell you how it will be checked and returned back to you. So don't be worried about that as well. So all these details will be posted on the WhatsApp group as and when needed. Right? So is everyone clear with the topic for today, which is more important? And will that help you in practicing for 4th June more questions on ethical and professional issues? I've given you my resources, I've given you my slides, I've given you my answers as much as possible. So please ensure you are involved within them and try to bring the best possible answer for ethical and professional issues. Right? Again, I wish you best of luck for your exams, which you are having on 4th, and I hope you are effectively preparing yourself on a daily basis towards the 4th of June exams. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow for the 4th and the final day, which is about reporting, and I'll email you the link of the lecture today after the end of the Taraweeh prayers, which will be approximately 11:30 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. So please don't lose patience on the WhatsApp group that you need the recording links and you need this and you need that. I'll be sending the recording link once I get free over the day, and I'll be sending you the reporting resources for tomorrow, and I'll be sending you the link for the reporting class tomorrow. So I have to give you three things for tomorrow, right? The reporting class link, one. I have to give you the lecture for today, two, and I have to give you the resources for reporting for the class tomorrow, three. Okay, that was nice having you today in the session for the day three of this crash course for June 2018 exams. It was wonderful interacting with you and wonderful looking at your questions and responding to them. I hope you had an effective preparation for ethical and professional issue. It's goodbye from your tutor, Kashif Kamran. Allah Hafiz. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow.